Unfiltered, the official Sunderland AFC podcast.
Welcome to SAFC Unfiltered, a little bit of a different edition of Unfiltered this time. I'm not joined by Danny Collins, which is a bit of a relief, to be honest. Spent too much time with him. But I am joined by three other people as we look forward to a huge game for Sunderland ladies at the weekend between themselves and Durham. I'm joined by Sunderland player Grace McCarthy, Phil Smith from the Sunderland Echo, and Mark Donnelly. How is everyone? All right?
Yeah, good, thank you.
All good, cheers, Frankie.
Good. In that case, we'll start with you then, Grace, if that's okay. Obviously, a big game at the weekend, but I'd like to talk about the season so far. How would you assess the season so far? You've had those early wins, a couple of draws, and that defeat at the weekend as well. But a decent start, would you say?
Yeah, I think for us, obviously, we're new to the league. We've come in probably as the underdogs. We are new, that we haven't played in this league in a number of years. So for us, we kind of clearly internally kind of set out what our aims were for this year. And I think having sat together as a team last night, reflected on the weekend and reflected on kind of results today, we're happy where we are. Yes, we would have liked to win the weekend. That goes without saying. But I think when you kind of pause and you take an overview of where we are today, we're very much on track to what we set out to do.
Yeah, Grace, you've played at the highest level as well in the game as well, and many of the younger girls for Sunderland may be playing at this level for the first time. Just tell us a little bit about the standard in this division, because there's a bit of a mixed bag, isn't there?
Yeah, there's definitely a mixed bag, and I think, but probably one thing that the results have shown to date is that anyone can take any points off anyone. I think probably what is lining up this year is probably one of the most competitive championship leagues we've seen to date. I think you look at the results on the weekend and people are taking points off people, and I think for us personally, we've got quite a young team, so for a lot of the players it's the first time that they've ever competed at this level. So not only is it a huge learning experience for them, which is fantastic, but it's kind of learning experience for all of us as a whole, as we kind of understand, well, what is it that we want to do collectively and how can we help each other improve individually. But I think that's kind of reflected across the league. A lot of teams have a lot of younger players coming through, and that's only a great sign for kind of the direction of women's football and the routes and the pathways that players have to go through to the elite end of the game.
And it's been quite fine margins, hasn't it, in that defeat and those draws as well. There hasn't been much in the games you've played so far.
No, not at all. We said that last night. All the games have been 1 or 2 goals max. It's not like we're seeing teams put 6 goals past each other. So one, that indicates that it is a very competitive league, but two, it also highlights the importance of small margins, that sometimes it is literally the small moments in a game that can determine whether you walk away with a win or not. So as exciting as that is, that obviously puts more pressure on us as players to kind of control those moments and do the best we can to walk away with things in our favour.
And the weekend's fixtures got a little bit of extra spice for you. You spent some time at Durham, didn't you, after you joined from the southwest as well. What's it going to mean to you the weekend playing against Durham?
Yeah, I think if you look at both squads, there's been a number of players that have played for both teams. So there's definitely a massive personal element to it in terms of, one, a bit of friendly rivalry, but two, kind of people have invested interest in both teams. So obviously I joined Durham when I first moved to North East. Obviously, unfortunately experienced a knee injury on arrival, so didn't quite go to plan as I would have liked at the club. But I have a lot of fond memories. I know a lot of the players that still currently play there, and for me, I think it's definitely going to be a tasty fixture, but one I'm looking forward to.
Great, looking forward to it. Mark, you find yourself in a role at Durham ladies football team as well now. Just tell us a bit about your role there and what it is you do at the club.
Yeah, so I'm essentially the kind of media and marketing lead at the club, so anything on social media, anything on the website, that's me. As with any club, I think everyone does anything they need to do to help the club drive forward as well. So, you find yourself doing things that maybe aren't, in the job description, but, we're all a very kind of united staff here, and we'll do what we need to do and to drive this club forward.
What's your opinion and assumption of what you've found when you've gone into Durham? Because many people listening to this will be Sunderland fans and fans of Sunderland ladies, and what they've had to go through over the last few years, and it's been a bit of a roller coaster to say the least for them. But what's the recent history been like for Durham, and how's the club in their state at the moment?
Yeah, very good, very promising. The club's grown kind of year on year, from when they joined the league as it was WSL2 in 2014 to where they are now. Obviously, currently, very, very early days, obviously, but top of the league at the moment, finished second last season behind a very, very strong Leicester, and consistently been around the top 3/4, top 3-4 for the last 5 or 6 years, really. In a league that's had some very, very good teams in it, like, Manchester United and Tottenham now well established in the top division. Teams like Brighton have been in this league, even Doncaster Bell's going back a few years, so it's always been a very good division, but Durham have always been there or thereabouts. Very kind of united club, very together, playing squad and staff, and a club that it's really kind of enjoyable, I think, for everyone to be a part of.
And is there much of a youth development system there? The catchment area is pretty similar to Sunderland, let's be honest, isn't there? And as Grace said as well, there's players which have overlapped and gone each way themselves. So do you find the club has a better kind of, because it's more established, if you like, and hasn't had the turmoil of Sunderland over the last few years, do you find that there is a lot of younger players coming through there at the moment?
We've always produced players. The club started as a grassroots club. That was how the club began before it came into the WSL in 2014. It started as a grassroots club, and there's players who've kind of been with the club all the way. People like Beth Heppel and Lauren Briggs have grown, and there's some really kind of exciting young players at the club at the moment. People like Grace Eyre, Hannah Greenwood, Lily Crosthwaite, who've all been in and around the first team. So the club has produced players as the region has produced players. We all know about the North East's kind of track record in football. So it's something I think the club are very proud of, especially when you look at where the club started from and that kind of grassroots background. They want to keep developing players.
And someone who's in the role that you are, Mark, can you see the game growing week on week out, with social numbers growing, more people able to access the game? It's just awareness, isn't it, to a certain extent, but it's definitely growing, the women's game, isn't it, and fast.
Oh, massively, yeah. I mean, you look at the crowds it's getting, you look at the interest it's getting on social media. It's incredible now, the way the game's going, and obviously the TV deal with Sky and the BBC that started in the summer for the Super League's incredible, and that's going to take things to the next level. It's a really, really exciting time for the sport, and I think we've got obviously a home European Championships next summer as well. The European Championships coming to England. That's going to be a huge thing for the game in this country as well. So it's a really, really exciting time, I think, across the country and here in the North East as well.
And Phil, if I could just bring you in, as someone who writes for the Sunderland Echo, can you see that appetite for the women's game growing as well, with demand to know what's going on not just a weekly but a daily basis as well?
Yeah, I think it's a really exciting time to be back at this level. I think it's a huge thing for the club, and I think it's an exciting time coming out of the pandemic as well. The fact that people can go along, watch the team. You've got a really good blend in the team. As you've mentioned before, a lot of exciting young players coming through. The team's performed really well this season, had a really strong start. So I think it's a really exciting time just for the club generally, both in terms of being back at this level, coming up through the leagues, and also just, the fact that we can all go to games. I think it's a really exciting time, and I think we'll see that over the season ahead.
Grace, just to go back to you, what's the ambition then this season? Given that you've played the 5 or 6 games already, you're starting to find your feet in the league as a squad. Maybe, was the ambitions just survival before, or are you thinking a little bit further ahead?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say survival, but I think we are realistic. For us, like you said, it's the first time we're back at this level in what has been now nearly 4 years. So for us, it's about building. We don't just want this to be kind of a short-lived experience. We want to kind of come up, establish ourselves in the league and build and grow from there. And I think, like we touched on previously, having quite a young squad means that there is going to need to be a bit of time where they find their feet, they grow into it, and they learn about kind of what is needed to compete at this level. There's no doubt we are aiming to do the best we can do, both on and off the pitch, and that's always been something we will always do as players in every game we go into. But I think for us it's about, can we do well this year? Can we compete in this league, and can we then give ourselves a basis to kind of build on in the future?
And something we spoke about with Mel, actually, when she appeared on the podcast earlier this season, is the dedication that you guys have to have because of, the real life commitments that you all have as well. If you wouldn't mind, Grace, just give us a little bit of an insight of how often you guys get together and how often you train, and then you have the travelling as well, don't you, during a normal week, for example?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So at the moment, as a club, we train 3 nights a week. So we're in, for example, last night we were in at 5:30 for an hour in the gym, and then we done half an hour analysis before then going onto the pitch for 2 hours. So when we're in for about 4 to 5 hour periods. But that is in and around everyone's having a full-time job or being a student. So, for example, when we played Bristol at the weekend, a number of players opted to fly back simply for the fact that they were at work at 6, 7 a.m. in the morning. So that's not to suddenly say, like, feel sorry for us, not at all. That is the reality of the game at this level, is that us and other teams in the league are balancing kind of commitments on and off the pitch. And I think one of the things that we'll striving to do better will hopefully give us more opportunities, particularly for the younger players coming through, to maybe step into that game full time and play full time in the future. But for now, yeah, everyone in the league is very much balancing, or everyone particularly in our team is balancing either a full time job or full time studying alongside kind of training as a squad 3 nights a week, around all kind of the additional stuff that we do in our own time. So there's no doubt in saying it is challenging. But we all do it for the love of the game. We're all in it for the right reasons. And for me, someone who's probably at the latter part of their career, I wouldn't have it any other way in terms of being able to do a career that I find fulfilling in terms of my day job, but also play the sport I love.
And Phil, it's really important as well that the ladies team has been taken very seriously once again at Sunderland Football Club, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's huge, because I think that, you know, everybody knows that we have always produced the talent in this region, and we still are. You know, earlier this week we had 3 players playing for England out in Poland against Russia, which again is a fantastic achievement. You're seeing the team now, really good local talent, and I think that, you know, it's about ensuring that platform is there over the next few years, and obviously, hopefully, the long-term aim is can we get the club full-time, because that would obviously be a huge step forward for these players. And that's why being back at this level is so important, I think, because it really does give that platform. And what we've already seen in the early stages of this season is that the team is really competitive. You know, the margins in the games have been really fine. You know, even in defeat at the weekend, and, you know, a very close run game, just 1 goal in it. So I think it's just exciting that the platform is there for these players, and hopefully that can be just something that grows and grows. And as we've kind of already talked about on this podcast, you know, staying at this level and growing from there is really important. And I think that's why, you know, taking such a solid points return from the early stage of the season is kind of really encouraging.
Grace, I just want to ask you, what's the perception of North East women's football for someone who's from outside the area originally? Because obviously you see all the big stars in the England sides and Team GB and things like that. But there isn't a WSL side amongst them at the moment. So how does that go down in the game?
Yeah, so I think the North East, particularly in the last probably few years, probably feel maybe a bit hard done. But I know for myself, when I moved here, so I moved to North East in 2016. It comes with such a reputation for producing England players. You only have to look at the current Lionesses squad to know how many players have come through the ranks of a North East club. And I think that's something that the area is proud of, and rightly so. And I think what's great about ourselves now being in the same league as Durham, and obviously both clubs kind of striving to progress in the game, is that it puts the area back on the map. It gives the area kind of the attention that I think it deserves, particularly for someone who's come in like externally, obviously from the south upwards. And I think probably for too long the attention has very much been around London and southern based clubs, and now you've got clubs kind of coming up in Manchester. But I think you can't really ever forget what the North East has done for the women's game historically, but what it continues still to do is, as Phil just touched on, obviously we had 3 RTC players out with England this week in the qualifiers, and I think those players coming through both at Sunderland and at Durham only highlights that the area is still producing talent, and will continue to do so. It just needs the support that it deserves. So for me, I think, yeah, it's a thing that the North East should be rightly proud of, but it's something that I believe they will continue to do.
And Mark, this weekend's fixture surely is a marketeer's dream, if you like, because it's something which the men's game doesn't have, and that's a rivalry between Durham and Sunderland, although probably club historian Rob Mason will correct me about a game back in 1879 or something like that between Durham and Sunderland. But Mark, it's a real, you know, original tie, isn't it? And it's something really mouthwatering for North East football fans.
Yeah, definitely, and it's nice. It's kind of fallen on a men's international weekend as well, because that obviously means there's a little bit of a gap in the calendar for a lot of people. And I think more than anything, it's going to be a really, really good game, a really good day out for people, and yeah, it's a really good showcase, I think, of North East women's football and the teams we've got competing at a very good level now.
And accessibility as well to these games. The pricing is always really low. On Sunday, for example, it's only £5 for adults, £2.50 for concessions. Is that important still at this level, Mark?
I think so, yeah, because I think, as a family, you can look at it and think you can have a family trip to the football for a very kind of reasonable amount, and that's the same at every club in the division, really, and even in the Women's Super League. It's very affordable, and the crowds are growing. It's great to see. We have some excellent crowds here at Maiden Castle for our games, and it's great to see that interest growing, and that, yeah, as you say, it is accessible, and that's kind of, I think, how people want to make it stay.
And Phil, from a press angle as well, it is a tasty match coming up.
Yeah, well, I think, as Mark alluded to, I think more than anything, it's just the fact that it's going to be a good game. Obviously, Durham are well established at this level and have made a really strong start to the season, and so have Sunderland. And I think Sunderland have shown that. They've been competitive in every game. They've had some big wins, and they've had some good draws, and I think that just goes to show that you're going to get a really good standard of game. If you come along and watch, you're going to see players who are really experienced at this level. You're going to see some players who I think have got a really big future in the game on both sides. So I think above anything, it's just it's a really exciting kind of football and contest, and I think it is really good as well that we do have these two ambitious sides in the northeast that are striving. I think it does help, put the game on the map in this region, and hopefully something that as both clubs will just grow and grow over the coming years.
Yeah, so Phil, that's something you'd love to see at the end of the season, perhaps both clubs getting promoted. I mean, that would be the dream, right?
Well, I think it's really exciting to see Sunderland's kind of stabilising at this level, and I think that, spoken to Mel, spoken to the players, obviously you want to win every week, you want to do the very best you can, you want to push up to the top end of the table, but also I do think, speaking to Mel, she's always been very clear that the main goal is to be in a better position next season, and obviously a big part of that is making sure that Sunderland are in the Championship, giving that experience to these younger players. I think that's a big thing as well, and obviously the more experienced members of the side can help them grow. And I think it is a long-term project at Sunderland. It has been a very difficult few years for a number of reasons, COVID being one of them. The general situation is, I think everybody knows and understands as well. So I think it's just about building that back up, and it is going to be a long-term project. And I think the really positive sign is that, there's clearly a squad here who, are really united, are playing some good football, have had some good results, I think can take the club forward over the next few years. Durham have obviously had a longer spell at this level, so they might have that little bit more Championship experience, if you like, and obviously they've had an excellent start of the season in terms of their results. But it's just an exciting kind of step in the journey, I think, for Sunderland, and I think the main thing, I don't know how kind of Grace sees it, but it's to be in a better position next year, and I think certainly the early trends are encouraging on that front.
Grace, is that what you think as well?
Yeah, and I think Mark kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of this weekend's a showcase. It's an opportunity for the North East to get the probably attention it deserves in terms of football. And I think as Phil just said there, as much as we are as players striving to do the best we can and to go into every game and come away with 3 points, we also act with a level of realism. That doesn't mean we're selling ourselves short, but that means we're thinking about what is the long-term aim, like where do we want to be in the next 3 to 5 years, and it's building ourselves towards that. And for success to be sustainable, there comes a level of obviously needing the support to allow us to compete at this level, but hugely for our younger players. I'm the oldest in the team by quite a while, and a lot of the 16, 17, 18 year olds need the experience at this level, one, to just grow as players, but two, to understand how to compete. And the more we can give them that, the more likely they are then to sustain their success at Sunderland and with the club. So for us, it's about being realistic, but also then striving to do the best we can do as we kind of build for the future. Being
realistic about the weekend's game as well, Grace. What's your preparation going to be like? Are you expecting probably be your hardest test of the season so far?
Yeah, I think just the nature of the game. I think, like we said before, obviously the number of players haven't played on both teams. I think there's probably a personal level to the game to a number of players. We're playing against people that we know really well. But that aside, ultimately we're going to a game at another 90 minutes. And for us, it's about looking back at Bristol and the weekend's result, and we're disappointed with that, and saying we knew there's small margins. We know if we had done the best we could on the day, we could have walked away with a better result. So for us, it's about learning from the weekend. It's about learning about what went well, can we build on that, but maybe what wasn't so successful, and it's about going to put that into practice this weekend. So there's no doubt it'll be a tough challenge. I think Durham have proved themselves at this level now for a number of years, and rightly so. But it's about us focusing on what we can do, and that's focusing kind of what our game plan is going into the weekend, putting in the preparation which we started last night and what we'll continue tomorrow, and just building to put ourselves in the best possible position to compete on Sunday.
And Mark, in the Durham camp, how's the prep going? Everyone looking forward to it?
Yeah, I think similarly to what Grace said, it's very much focused on ourselves. We've had three kind of positive results, but we know Sunderland's going to be a difficult game, as every game in this league is, because it's a very, very competitive league. We're not seeing the 6, 7, 8-0 score lines that we might have seen in the last 2 or 3 seasons. it is the odd goal here and there. You know, the work that the coaching staff and the management team put in is absolutely meticulous in terms of their preparations, and you know, I think we're just treating it as another game, because every game at this level is really, really challenging and really, really difficult for different reasons.
Great. Thanks, everyone, for your thoughts on the weekend's fixture and where we are at right now. Thanks for joining me on SAFC Unfiltered. Don't forget, everyone, that the game kicks off 12 noon at Eppleton on Sunday. £5 adult tickets, £2.50 for concessions. Get down and see a good game of football.